welcome to Gar Borras' Time Machine. This is episode 70, part 2, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, and the years we'll be talking today are from 1971 to 1974. And for anybody that checked out part 1 of this episode, Gar, knows in part 1 we were talking about the kind of a rise of Sonny and Cher early in their career, the early years, and right as that episode ended was around 1969 when they had 2 flop movies and Sonny and Cher's career had kind of stalled. Now we're picking up the Sonny and Cher story today. Like I said, the year of the comeback is 1971 with the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. They take their career in a bit of a different direction, and they were very successful at it. So that's what today's story is kind of going to be about. Let's get into it now. I know obviously you were a Sonny and Cher fan. We talked a lot about that last episode, but how big of a fan were you of this comedy hour when you seen it for the very first time?
Well, I definitely have memories of sitting down with the family and watching the show. It was a very, very popular show, and there were elements about the show that kind of bridged the generation gap, because
Sure.
back in the 1960s, that is where that term was born, the term generation gap.
Yeah.
Basically, for all, for the parents and the child, there is always that gap. You know what I mean? The between the pop cultures and all of that. What's liked and what's disliked and all that kind of stuff. And that the Sonny and Cher show bridged that generation gap, because they had the elements of a variety show, which was really popular at the time.
Sure.
But also it had the elements of the beatnik slash hippie element, which appealed to the younger crowd. So there were reasons for me and my sister to be sitting down watching it, as well as there were reasons why my parents were sitting down watching it, which were completely different reasons.
Yeah, and like Gar, you made a very good point. I mean, the 1960s was basically the hippie generation, and at the end of the hippie generation, actually, 1969 is when they had the big Woodstock event, and that was kind of, interestingly enough, at the very end of the hippie generation. Now, like I said, at that point, 1969, also Sonny and Cher's career had stalled, and they're at that point trying to figure out what do we do next, and like we talked about. This episode on Sonny and Cher was really spawned on our 3-part episode we did on the Ed Sullivan Show, because Sonny and Cher were part of that episode because they made an appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show, and we were talking about. I remember when I seen them performing on the Ed Sullivan Show. They come out and do "I Got You, Babe," and they very much look like they came from the hippie generation. Sonny in his kind of long-haired hippie haircut, dressed in the way they did, coming out hand in hand. Cher looking the way she did. He didn't even have his famous mustache. Now, come 1971, when they launched with Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, Sonny's look is very different. He's now got the famous mustache. He's done away with the long-haired hippie look, and his hair is much shorter. Do you think that was kind of just a gradual change, or do you think that was, okay, we're going to be on TV, so we got to kind of change the look? What's your thought on that?
Well, I think it's a bit of all of it.
Yeah.
There's the element of the TV that we're probably going to have to make adjustments, for the appeal of TV, but then also the people get older, and I just when we all look back at our pictures, we look at these different stages of our lives.
Sure.
I don't think it's any different for them. They're people just like the rest of us.
Sure.
that go through the same type of changes that everybody else. It was just a natural progression that happens in everybody's lives.
Yeah,
it's just we see it
because they're on TV.
Because they live in a bubble where everybody watches them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the really only difference is they're in a high profile position for everyone to be able to see into their lives. And for wealth, for famous people, that can be disconcerting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think for all of us in our regular lives, there's always our personal private.
Yeah.
We never realize how much we covet our privacy.
Sure.
Until that privacy has been exposed. You know what I mean? That privacy is no longer private. And then you find out the horrors that come from that. And so I'm sure that put pressure on their marriage, and that affected their lives in ways that they had never
imagined,
or expected, or even saw coming.
Yeah.
So there's always this element to when you become a public person. There are things that happen to those people that are very disconcerting. That people in more civilian, lives never experience, and they have no idea about any of it because it's just not a part of their lives. It's so remote from their lives that people don't even think about it. But as soon as you lose it, it's really disconcerting.
Yeah, and Gar, another thing you and I were discussing prior to going on the air today, recording this episode, was the fact that to prep for today's show, we each went on YouTube and we were able to watch some classic episodes of the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. Now, one thing that immediately kind of jumped out at me, going back and talking about the early years of Sonny and Cher, it was very obviously that Sonny got credit for kind of being the brains behind the success of the group. He wrote all the hit songs. He was a songwriter, a producer, and Cher was actually the kind of a star power, of a talent. Now, in the Comedy Hour, they're more put on an equal kind of footing, and I think Sonny Bono's, kind of star appeal, if you will, was more up in front during the Comedy Hour era of their career, for the simple fact he was a funny guy, and he got a chance to kind of show that side of him a little more on the TV show than what they were doing musically.
Yeah, and his willingness to be the butt of the joke.
Yeah, that was a big part of that.
That was a big part of the chemistry between the two that launched the TV show. Was that whole thing that was going back and forth between the two, and he would always wind up being the butt of the jokes. And I do remember, because I think I was in my elementary, almost like middle school years. And, there were times that I kind of felt like, some of it got under his skin, but he just, would not, he was smart enough to know that this was the cash cow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you want the cash cow to keep being a cash cow, then you got to smile and grin and bear it. Even though you might not like how somebody is kind of cutting you down, because that's basically what Cher was always doing. Is she was It wasn't nice, but it did always come across as funny.
I think.
But there were times that I could feel it myself. Oh man, that might have got under his skin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I was watching an episode where she's talking about his mother, about him being an Italian. I mean, and then he'd go back and kind of clown on her about her big nose, and it's stuff that we can laugh about now. But I don't know if that show is on today that they would get away with telling jokes like that. And yeah, it's funny, and I don't really have an issue with it, but people would have an issue with they're telling Italian jokes. That's not politically correct, and again, it's just another example of how different the times were.
Well, that's pop culture.
Yeah, that's what we talk about every week.
As society changes, so does pop culture, and they both change together. And that is the thing that really kind of really catches my attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That the two are interrelated. Social and pop culture are intertwined. They both influence each other. Pop culture influences social views, but social views also influence pop culture. So that's the reason why it just becomes this thread throughout all of our episodes, because it is a pop culture thing, and it is a uniqueness of our subject. It really is truly unique how those two things are intertwined.
And another great example, or a great such thread that runs through all these episodes is when prepping for a show last night, watching some of these old classic episodes of Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. I mean, just looking at what the clothes they're wearing and stuff, I had no doubt I'm watching something from the 1970s. I mean, that's another, and I don't even think that's something that's intentional. I mean, you even you watch, classic episodes of our favorite TV shows from the 1980s or 90s. You can tell just based on how people are dressing. Oh yeah, that's from the 80s. That's from the 90s.
Well, when I was, a kid at that time, I was so into that whole thing, that the hippie fashion, the bell bottoms, the type of shirts. There was a type of shirt that was real popular in the late 60s, early 70s called Nehru shirts. People can Google that, because Nehru shirts were real popular at that time.
And bell bottoms.
I think I might have had a Nehru shirt, which has a very unique collar to it. And so, so these were things that were part of that fashion that you're talking about. If you watch these episodes, you will see people wearing a Nehru shirt on these episodes. Or if you watch other episodes from the 60s and all of that stuff, you will see people wearing Nehru shirts. Nobody knows what a Nehru shirt is now.
Unless you were around back then.
It was so popular. It was very popular fashion. And I remember when when my parents took me back to school shopping, buying outfits, the new clothes for the new year of school and that kind of thing, because you grow, and you by then you've pretty much outgrown what you wore the year before, because as a kid you grow,
Oh, sure.
But during that time, when my parents took me shopping, that's what I wanted. I wanted bell bottoms. I wanted Beatle boots. Those shoes that the Beatles used to wear in their early years. I wanted those, and I wanted the shirts and all of the fashion. And then when I went to school, and I'm wearing all of this stuff, and I literally got ridiculed by all of the other kids, because all of the other kids that were in middle school were wearing this was not a spoken thing, but pretty much everybody was wearing white T-shirts, Levi jeans, Converse tennis shoes, with white socks, and then you had your jeans rolled up at the bottom.
Yeah.
And that was what everybody else was wearing, because that was what what normal main society was doing. But I was following a different thing, and I was constantly being picked on by other kids at school, and constantly getting in fights because I wasn't going to take it.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't give a crap, how many, or if they ganged up on me or anything. I wasn't going to take it. And now here's where the story's going. There was a guy that was in the class that was a year older than me.
Okay.
And he was into music and everything, and he saw all of this. And he liked what I was doing. And he started dressing like I was dressing.
Wow.
And he told me, because he was one of the rough kids, he told me, hang around with me, kid, and you'll be okay.
Wow, wow, wow.
And he wound up being my, and then that started a group of people, and then eventually it wound up becoming part of everything else. But when I first started going to school, I was the only one that was dressing up like Sonny and Cher and all of that kind of stuff. And like I said, I was getting. I was taking my Beatle boots, which they come to a point, and I was kicking people. And I was putting the freaking hurt on, man, because they were putting the hurt on me.
Wow, wow.
And I was always a fighter. You know what I mean?
That's where that fighting spirit comes from.
I've always been a fighter.
Wow.
And so that is my story about me being a hippie and getting social pressure, the maximum amount of social pressure being put on me to not be dressing like that and be dressing like everyone else.
Wow.
That is a true story.
Wow. Wow. We learn something new about you each episode, Gar. I love it. And, another thing fashion-wise that dates back to... Go ahead.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
That guy went on to become the lead singer for a band called Captain Cosmo and the Sky People, which was an early glam band.
Oh wow!
In the early 70s.
Oh wow! Wow!
And he was there were two members in that band called Captain Cosmo that went on to become Wall of Voodoo, which wound up having like albums out, successful albums. They even wound up playing at the US Festival, one of the biggest concerts in the history of California.
Wow.
And that guy wound up becoming the lead singer of that band, that eventually became Wall of Voodoo. It wasn't Wall of Voodoo with that guy as the singer, but that's a little bit of a musical tie to the history about, that guy that wound up, being, because as soon as I started hanging around with him, they stopped picking on me.
I love that. Wow. And Gar, just to kind of wrap up this portion, another thing fashion-wise, I remember that goes all the way back to the 1970s. That's when people started wearing ripped jeans, and that's still a current trend all these years later. Even I hear kids now, believe it or not, talking about they buy jeans and they take them to these seamsters who professionally rip the jeans for them.
Well, I remember in the 80s doing it myself.
Yeah. Saving money, right, Gar? Getting back to Sonny and Cher, it says I was writing down, by 1971, Sonny and Cher, like we said at the top of this episode, were no longer producing hit singles. As a duet, the movies Chastity and Good Times bombed at the box office, and so at that point, Sonny and Cher's career had reached a major standstill. It said by 1971, when it seemed as though Sonny and Cher's career had stalled, the couple decided to try something new, and they began to sing and tell jokes in nightclubs throughout the United States. One night, Fred Silverman, the head of programming at CBS, saw them performing in a nightclub and offered them their own show on CBS, and this is how the Comedy Hour got launched.
And that moment, where they wound up having to decide, well, what do we do next? And then they decide to do this. Had they not made that decision, it's just trippy to think about that because what would go through my mind at a time like that is well, we still got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The roof has still got to be over the head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's still got to be food on the table. There's still got to be gas in the gas tank. You know what I mean? So we still got bills. So we got to do something. But in my mind, a move like that usually is a desperation move.
Yeah.
Because you have to pay the bills. But what wound up happening was they wound up, that lightning in a bottle again. Because that basically became that lightning in a bottle, and somebody with vision saw it, and that person that had the vision was Fred Silverman. He was the executive that saw them and offered them the TV show, and he was a big guy that's what he did. He spearheaded shows. You know what I mean? And so in most cases, a move like that is a desperation move, and is a move that usually winds up becoming the beginning of the end. But for Sonny and Cher, it became a brand new beginning.
Yeah, I mean, almost like pretty much what we're talking about today in part 2 of episode 70 is Sonny and Cher's major comeback. Like you go back to where the career stalled in 1969, most people at that point, they might get with a different producer, they might have a different manager, people's telling them, okay, you know what, today, it's 1971 and people are so beyond I Got You, Babe. Let's move in a more pop direction, Nobody wants to hear about what you're singing about in the 1960s. But what's interesting about their comeback is they kind of took it in a different direction. They played off of who they already were, their celebrity status they already had. But in addition to just continue on, musically, they kind of went in a comedy direction. And let's have a variety show, first of all, where we're not just the featured stars. We have other people come on. We do skits with them. It's more of a comedy show than even a musical thing. But because of who they are, like I was reading, like each episode would start with the theme for the show was The Beat Goes On. Each episode would start with that. And at the end of each episode of the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, Sonny and Cher would end the show by coming out and singing their signature song, I Got You, Babe. So again, they're playing off of who they already were and yet kind of also moving in a new direction.
Yeah, and it goes back to the reasons for my parents to watch it, and then also the reasons for the siblings to watch it also. Because of that dual popularity of what they were doing. It was. I don't think that it was like a preconceived thing. But winding up choosing to do a comedy / music show created a opportunity for them to just completely widen the
audience,
the people, the reach.
Yeah.
It just completely widened that reach because it encompassed so many different things that were popular at the time that people liked. So there wasn't just one reason to watch the show. There were many reasons to watch the show. You could watch it because you could really enjoy the musical talent, because it was incredible musical talent. You could also watch it because it was funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was just a whole bunch of reasons, and it was. I really don't think that it was a thought out plan. It was just something that just wound up organically happening.
In fact, Gar, I'll tell you, talking about tuning in for music, and watching a couple episodes last night. One of the episodes I watched, one thing I just loved, the show opened up. Sonny and Cher come out, they do their little monologue, but then they open up with a musical number. It's not even one of their music. They do a rockin' version with them trading off on vocals of CCR's Bad Moon Rising.
Yeah, and they do good versions of it too.
Yeah.
Because that was another thing that I noticed when I was watching the episodes is these songs that they were performing that were not theirs. They were doing a very good job at performing these songs. It wasn't a disappointment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, a guy like
another reason to like the show.
A guy like John Fogerty doesn't necessarily need help selling records, but could you imagine if you're John Fogerty back in the day, or the rest of the guys in that band, and you see Sonny and Cher performing your song on their national TV show, and they're doing such a kick-ass version? I mean, just think of how many people check that out because of the way Sonny and Cher performed a song. Maybe they went and bought the CCR record, or they went to check out the original version of a tune.
Well, you never know. They could wind up having people that pick an array of songs, and then they try things, and this isn't working. Scrap that one. I have a feeling it's more like that, where they just have a number of songs to choose from to do for that thing, and then they will wind up trying, and then they will wind up picking the song that winds up lending itself better to their musical abilities. Does that make sense?
Oh, sure.
Because always just centralizing on only one song. Well, what if that song, the duo doesn't have a good chemistry with that song?
Yeah.
That's why it makes more sense to have a collection of songs to choose from, and then work on those, and then see which one of those lends itself best.
Yeah, I'd love to know
performing on the show in that spot.
I'd love to know whose idea was that. I mean, who came up with the idea to have them sing other musical performer songs, cover other people's songs, because the thing of it is you naturally assume, okay, Sonny and Cher have their own show, they're going to go and they're going to perform their own songs. They did that, but I love the fact that it wasn't all just Sonny and Cher songs. I mean, again, they're kind of going against what people would expect them to do,
Yeah, yes, and it just all the way around, it really appealed, because I remember watching the show, and I remember enjoying it just as much as my parents were enjoying it.
Yeah, and see
so that it's and it was those hippie elements that was drawing me, in. To watching the show. It was that the bell-bottom elements, that even though the show, they were kind of moving past that, it was still during the time where, the entire decade of the 70s, teenagers wore bell-bottoms.
Sure.
People, that has completely died out, and nobody, you have boot cuts now, which are kind of the closest version to that.
Yeah.
But think about that. the fashion trends don't last for 10 years.
Yeah, do you see anybody?
That is extremely rare for a fashion trend to last that long. Just like hair metal.
Sure.
Styles of music doesn't stay popular for 10 years. Hair metal did that, which was an anomaly.
Sure.
Because popularities of genres do not last for 10 years.
Sure.
But think about that. The fashion of the bell bottoms lasted for 10 freaking years. That is super, super popular, and it completely identifies a 10-year generation with a style.
Sure.
Because when anybody thinks of the 70s now, what do they think of?
Bell bottoms.
Bell bottoms.
And if you see anybody in bell bottoms today, they're very far in between. They're probably going to a costume party or Halloween party or something like that.
It's hard. I really kind of marvel at that because it was so popular at the time. Whenever I went to go to the store to buy pants, there were no other pants in consideration other than bell bottoms. I wouldn't even consider anything else.
Well, the only other thing that might have been around at the time, which you don't, also like bell bottoms, you don't see too much these days, is corduroys.
Well, that was also part of the 70s. I think I had some corduroy.
We all did. Yeah.
But that kind of died off too, and corduroys have not been popular ever since.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why, but it's really, but that was a huge part of Sonny and Cher was that hippie element, even though the Sonny and Cher was kind of moving away from that.
Yeah.
It was still an element that was part of what they were doing.
Yeah, and now again, just to give people a time frame of what we're talking about, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour show premiered on CBS on August 1st, 1971. It ran for a total of 67 episodes for 4 seasons.
Well, and that's a hugely popular show because when you think about it, how many episodes per season back in those days?
Yeah.
A lot. I mean, a lot. Nowadays, a complete season can be 6 episodes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
What back in the 70s they used to consider a mini series, which was what they would call these, that would have one episode a week going for maybe about 5 weeks.
Yeah.
It was basically a mini movie, and there were really popular ones. There was one back in the 70s called Rich Man, Poor Man, and there was a bunch of others. But those were called mini series back then. Mm-hmm. Well, today, that is considered a full season, and that is so disappointing to me.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand, I come from a generation that a full season was 24 episodes.
Oh, yeah. They used to make...
Or more.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? A normal season for a TV show was 24 episodes.
Oh, you're so right, Gar.
That is so far removed from what they do now.
That's why,
the last decade.
Yeah. You there, Gar Borras? Think we lost Gar.
That's it. It started dying off after that.
Yeah.
And, it continued on, but it started becoming less and less and less until all the way you get to now. And now, a complete season is 6 to 10 episodes, and that's it.
Yeah, we often say during these episodes, Gar, that which is I think totally true. They don't make TV shows like they used to. That's why I'm really glad that a lot of times I catch myself on the weekends watching some of these old retro TV channels, like TV Land and MeTV and stuff like that, and like Batman and Happy Days. Like even Batman, they only had three seasons, but like you said, back in the day,
how many
episodes they
per
made,
season?
And so we got a lot of these classic episodes we now can still enjoy watching. Thank God that they were pumping them out a lot faster than what they do today. Everything I think today is based on money. I mean, they used to have this thing I watched on VH1 with Eddie Trunk. Anybody knows who he is? And they called it the This Metal Show or something, and it was very successful. It didn't get taken off the air because of poor ratings or anything. It got taken off the air just because it cost too much money to produce each episode. So you have a successful show.
The cost versus the profit.
Yeah.
And that is, that has always been the rub or where the gears grind. Mm-hmm. Because whenever you're taking art and you're mixing it with business, it's oil and water. It really is. And the business side always has a negative effect on the creative side.
Yeah, I mean,
on the artistic side. The artistic side always suffers
in the end.
Because of the importance of the bottom line.
Yeah, and again, just to kind of give people a little more of an idea of what we're talking about here, it said the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour was an American TV variety show starring pop singers Sonny and Cher, who were married at the time. And of course, Gar, I think a lot of the reason Sonny and Cher were so successful at this was because of the fact that they were married. And what I mean by this is I think because they were really married and they lived together and they were really living their life together. Each week they do the show, they come and film a new episode, and they'd kind of talk about what was going on in their life, and they'd crack their jokes and clown on one another, and people really were buying it because they thought, okay, they're really kind of showing how they really feel. They're talking about what's going on in their life. They're sharing with us what's going on, as opposed to just hiring, two actors to host a show that aren't married. They're not living together. I think it would have been a very different type of show had they done that.
Well, it's all about catching the lightning in a bottle, and that is something that is so difficult to do. And if it was easy to do, then it wouldn't be as special as it is.
Yeah.
Or we wouldn't marvel at it like we do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And doing episodes. Going back and reminiscing about it. It's what makes the whole thing special. And they were lucky enough that the decisions that they made turned out that way, that they wound up capturing lightning in a bottle, and that's the only way I know of how to describe it, because it's something you can't hold in your hand. It's not something that that has a definition, or it's not even something that even has a formula.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But it is something that exists.
Yeah,
and very few people have been able to capture that lightning in a bottle, but that's what makes them so special and makes them worthy of doing a Time Machine episode, even going back and giving kudos, to what they created, and trying to keep what they accomplished from fading into obscurity. To me, that is the most fulfilling thing about doing this show.
Sure.
Is it really? It's just our little bit of help of keeping these things from becoming just lost and faded into darkness to just be completely forgotten.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a funny story, Gar. In prepping for today's episode, as so often is the case, like I'd seen the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour before, not necessarily back in the day, because back in the day when it was on, I was just a little kid. But of course, I'm aware of who Sonny and Cher are. How I initially came aware of a comedy hour is years ago on VH1. They started replaying old episodes, and so that's how I kind of remember seeing it for the very first time and actually having a memory of what it was. And it's been several years until last night till I seen an episode. And watching these old episodes I watched last night, it kind of it really took me aback as far as realizing, this was more than just a variety show. What I mean by that is kind of like when we did our Family Feud episode. I'd always been a Family Feud fan, but I like you, I discovered all these great episodes they were showing on YouTube, and I was watching a lot of these old episodes of Family Feud or even the Comedy Hour that we're talking about here, and I was reminded, oh, man, I forgot what a great show that was, and I'm glad we're doing this episode because I took the time to seek out some of these old episodes, and I was reminded, oh wow, that's what a great show I remember that being, and if it can have that kind of effect on me just prepping for a show, I hope people listen to this episode and they get equally as excited. What are they talking about? Sonny and Cher, Comedy Hour. Let's go seek out an episode.
Or that, or just even just sparking memories in people's minds about their lives at that time. You know what I mean?
Sure.
To have that effect on other people, to spark those memories, those fond memories. It's just one of those things you never think about when you think about, hey, let's do this
episode
pop culture show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the furthest thing from your mind. But it is the most gratifying things to discover, that you can have that kind of positive effect on other people.
Yeah.
And for me, to me, there's nothing that makes me feel better than having a positive effect on other people.
Oh, that's great. And as we often talk about these episodes, Gar, so often, the audience knows better. The audience kind of gets it right before the so-called experts. Well, here's the interesting part of this Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour story. It said originally the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour was just going to be a summer replacement show, but the fact that it became an immediate hit with TV viewers, the minute the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour became a top 20 hit show, CBS decided to greenlight the show and give it a permanent spot on the CBS primetime schedule.
Well, you cannot argue with the reaction that the audience had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is exactly what all of these people that monitor that stuff are looking for. It's their justification so they can spend the money and feel less risk.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Oh, sure. You there, Gar? Gar Borras?
A weird animal because I encompass both the creative side and the business side.
Yeah.
So I understand the importance of both.
Sure.
But also I also see how one can affect the other in a very detrimental way.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
And Gar, last time we were also talking in part one of today's episode on Sonny and Cher about the fact that when a song becomes a hit, oftentimes just you look back and you think back to like the very first time, let's say I heard "I Got You, Babe," and the immediate reaction I had to that song, and as well as many other people. A lot of times you hear a song and you know it's going to mean something. You just have an immediate reaction to it, or let's say the Pulse of America just reacts a certain way to a song like "I Got You, Babe." It's very interesting when they launched the show. They decided to use my two favorite Sonny and Cher songs to kind of, each episode would start with The Beat Goes On. That's probably got to be my second favorite Sonny and Cher song. And then they would close each show, as we said, with I Got You, Babe. And that's kind of the signature song. So it kind of makes sense. And they're very smart about picking those two songs, to kind of promote the show,
Well, yeah, it struck a chord with the audience, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. And now here's another fun fact I shared with you before recording today's episode that I learned. As we often learn in many of these episodes, a lot of famous, actors and actresses get started in the business in very many different ways. Well, I believe when we did our 3-part episode on the Ed Sullivan Show, another thing we learned that was launched from the Ed Sullivan Show was the Smothers Brothers. And Steve Martin, who didn't really break out in a huge way as a comedian until he appeared on Saturday Night Live in 1975. That's the first time people really heard from him in a huge way. But apparently, Steve Martin, as a writer and an actor, he first appeared on the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour as a regular cast member. He was a writer on the show. And so I was kind of interested to see that he got his start doing this. And also, in watching an old episode of a Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour last night, I learned that this guy's a writer. And, one of his famous Saturday Night Live skits was the King Tut skit. And they did Sonny and Cher did actually a King Tut routine in one of the episodes. I'm thinking, wow, okay, that's Steve Martin's routine that he became famous for on Saturday Night Live. I'm sure he had something to do with writing this skit here. And I'm like, wow, that dates all the way back to Sonny and Cher.
Well, yes, but then also there were a lot of people that were part of the cast members of the Sonny and Cher that are very notable. People don't know that the unknown comic, before he even came up with that character with the bag over his head. His name was Murray Langston, and he was a writer and a cast member of their show, the Sonny and Cher too.
Wow.
The unknown comic got his, that was part of his resume, was being, so it wasn't just Steve Martin. Terry Gar from Young Frankenstein was a cast member on that show. She was a regular cast member.
Wow.
Now, there's another one that really blew my mind because I did not see this coming because I did not know his real name. This person's his real name was Bob Einstein.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, what did he become famous for?
What's that?
Do you remember the character Super Dave Osborne, the American actor, that was the stunt guy that all his stunts would go wrong?
Oh, wow, yeah, I remember.
His name was Super Dave Osborne, and he became famous for being a stunt man.
Wow.
But the comedy was he would do the stunts, and the stunts would go wrong, and they would always be hilarious.
Wow.
That was in the 80s that he became famous doing that.
Wow.
And he was like the comedy version of an Evel Knievel.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sure.
And his name was Super Dave Osborne.
Yeah.
So look that up because he was funny. He was hilarious. He was also a cast member of the Sonny and Cher show.
Wow.
So these are people that worked on their show that went on to have their own
success,
notoriety, and their own success. Because I used to love Super Dave Osborne.
Oh, wow.
He was hilarious.
And of course, kind of, to kind of wrap up today's episode, I was even thinking when I just was reading this part and discovering this, that we could have even done, and maybe we will in the future, like maybe even a third installment of this on just the guests they had on. Check this list out. Some of the guests who appeared on the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour throughout the show's 4-season run included George Burns, Tony Curtis, Bobby Darin, Phyllis Diller, Carol Burnett, Merv Griffin, Chuck Berry, Dick Clark, and again, many of these people, unless you were back around in the 60s or 70s, kids today have no idea who we're talking about. George Burns, he's been gone so long. A lot of these people are, like you said, Chuck Berry, you might have heard of the name, but they're starting to fade. But again, what's interesting is look at that cast of characters that appeared, as a guest star on the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. And like you and I were talking before we went on there today, Gar, that the fact that Sonny and Cher's Comedy Hour predates the Carol Burnett show, and yet she was a guest on their show,
Yeah, well, basically, today we know what is considered A-list.
Yeah.
That is a term.
Yeah.
That actually, was invented a long time ago, way back in the 70s.
Sure.
But we know because it's a very prevalent thing what A-list means and everything. Well, all of these people, virtually every guest star that was on the Sonny and Cher show were all A-list
celebrities
of that time.
Yeah.
They virtually every single one of them was A-list for that time, for the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
They were the top of the heap. They were the cream of the crop. And there was nothing other than cream that appeared on their show. It's virtually every single one of them was A-list.
And what I loved about the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, and I think the reason it was so successful, was because while they could have made it just about Sonny and Cher, they did not. The fact that it was a variety show, they allowed other people to come on as guests, and they do these comedy sketches with the people, and they'd allow these other people to kind of show off their talent as well and share the stage with these people. I think that's why the show was so successful.
Well, but also, when Cher later in her years did interviews and she would reminisce about the show, she always reminisced about the show fondly. She always describes that time when they were doing that show. She really enjoyed. It was a lot of fun, and they made each other laugh.
Yeah,
that was the fun part of doing the show, was always making each other laugh.
And then so people might be asking, and we're getting ready to wrap up today's episode. So if the show was so successful, why did it end up getting canceled? And sadly, because just as they were beginning to, they're getting ready to renew the show for a 5th season. Sonny and Cher announced that they were planning to get divorced, and so obviously it would have made it a lot harder doing a show like that as a divorced couple. I think what was maybe once lighthearted banter would have turned into whatever led to the two of them getting divorced. A lot more kind of maybe mean banter, and it wouldn't have been so funny. Maybe they realized that.
Well, I think there are private reasons that we know nothing about,
and we never will. Yeah,
and that's going to be part of it too. There are going to be reasons that we absolutely know nothing about.
And we don't need to.
And it would be all speculation anyway.
Yeah, and I think we should end here where, just to let people know, anybody's not aware, Sonny sadly was killed in a horrible ski accident, I believe in the early 1990s. And what's interesting, the last couple of years, I think him and Cher finally kind of had a reunion on the David Letterman show right before he died, and it was kind of awkward, but they did it, and Cher at that point had launched a successful movie career, still had a successful solo career. But I guess at least before he died, they ended up on friendly terms. And interestingly enough, Cher was the one that was asked. I don't know about you, but she was asked to give a eulogy at Sonny's funeral, and I guess she said some pretty kind words. And from what I remember, she was going on the news around the time of Sonny's death, just kind of talking about him and what he meant to her. And she was talking finally, like saying, I remember saying something to the effect that she read an article in a Reader's Digest or something about, the most interesting character in a person's life. And she's like, I have to be honest, that was Sonny Bono for me. Mm-hmm. And so even all these years later, Well,
there. I'm sure there were the bad times.
Yeah.
But one of the things that as time goes along, time does help to kind of
heal the wounds.
Heal the wounds. I don't think time completely heals wounds, but sometimes it allows wounds to heal enough for reconciliation to happen. Yeah. And they were lucky enough to be able to do that before his untimely death.
Yeah. And interesting talking about Cher, that recently I seen that they had like kind of a Broadway play going across the country of somebody playing, like telling the story of Cher and playing the music of her career. So Cher's at a point where I don't want to say retired, because you still hear about her from time to time, but I don't know if she's putting out any new music or touring. She's like close to 80 years old, but you still hear about her from time to time. And I think, like you're talking, I think she's at a point in her life where I dare say, because again, this is just speculation, but I would dare say with somebody like Sonny Bono, it probably at a point in her life where she's like, there were more good times than bad times, or I'd rather celebrate the good times than remember the bad times,
Yeah, I think that happens with all of us.
Yeah.
It just allows, for enough healing to happen for reconciliation to be able to happen. Unfortunately, if some type of healing doesn't happen, then the reconciliation, it's impossible for that to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's nice to see, that, hopefully, we see back in the 1970s, I was introduced to the Renaissance Fair by a teacher.
Okay.
I think it was like the early 70s, like maybe about 73, that I decided to take a drama class. Wow. And, see what that was all about. And I just remember in one of the classes, the teacher was gushing about the Renaissance Fair, about how if you wanted to become involved in the theater, that's a wonderful place to go just to toy around with it and have fun with it, and do this whole thing. And I didn't know anything about it. And so I went to the Renaissance Fair, and it was the first Renaissance Fair that I ever went to, and it was like about 73.
Oh, wow, that's fun.
Well, Greg Allman and Cher and some of their actor friends were there at the Renaissance Fair.
Oh, wow.
And, I didn't talk to them.
No, you've seen them like, hey, that's her. That's her
thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But, I just remember, here it is, this happened like about 73, and I still remember it to this day. So
what a memory.
I was fortunate enough to have been close enough to have seen Cher with Greg Allman, and they were hanging out at the Renaissance Fair, just having fun.
Wow.
Just having fun.
What a fun memory that is. And Gar, as we wrap up today's episode, also I gotta talk a little bit about Chastity, because could you imagine growing up, with famous parents like that, and she was just a little baby at the time, very, very young, even when they were making the Comedy Hour. But can you imagine years later being able to go on YouTube and watch this classic TV show your parents made back in the day, and then they had their kind of awful split, but you watch an old episode of this show, the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, and you see how much in love they appeared to be and how they were kind of clowning on each other. It's got to be kind of a unique experience that not too many of us get to experience.
Well, but then also, here, just another one of those things that kind of dawns on you that when you are a famous person or a famous actor or when you get captured on film, you stay forever young.
Yeah.
That's also another part of it is when we all age, and there's nothing we can do about it. Aging and all of that stuff. But for these famous people, they are forever captured
on film
as young.
Yeah,
and that's a special thing. That could be really a really good thing. But also with anything
it could be bad.
There's there's too much of the focus on that, and then it becomes unhealthy.
Oh sure.
But just looking back and reminiscing and knowing that for a lot of people, they will always remember you at that stage of your life when you were that young and you were that beautiful. You know what I mean? So that's a special thing that these people that have earned that kind of achievement.
Sure.
They get to it's part of their legacy. That continues on and on and on. And as long as those films are archived and kept and not destroyed and not thrown away, Forever Young can last however long we can all imagine it to last.
Yeah. And on the final thing we're going to discuss here, Halloween being just a couple of weeks away from now, Gar, is the fact that kind of like we were talking, just like back when the show was on in the 1970s. I mean, how many people, let's say, would go to a Halloween party dressed as Sonny and Cher because they were that popular at the time, because of the fact that they watched them on TV, or they loved I Got You, Babe, or The Beat Goes On, or they seen Sonny and Cher perform in concert. I mean, how many people, this is a funny thing we talked a little bit about before, but how many people grew a mustache like that because Sonny Bono had a mustache?
That's how society is. Society always mirrors
pop culture.
Their pop culture favorites. So it's just it's so trippy. That's why people like to dress up like people on Halloween. That's why I have so much fun doing what I do. You know what I mean? It is fun. It's fun to not be yourself.
Sure. And
you know what I mean?
We all enjoy that.
It's fun to toy with not being yourself. And I have no idea why I love doing what I do, but it really does come down to that simple thing. I enjoy it for the same reasons as why people dress up for Halloween.
Oh, sure, makes sense. And to get people excited about Halloween and the holiday season that's before us, Gar. As far as the rest of this year goes, Gar Borras' Time Machine is moving into our favorite time of year, the holiday season. And to kick things off, we're going to be doing a holiday theme shows till the end of the year when we wrap up doing episodes for this year. And the very first one of those episodes is going to be the classic Wolfman movie, I believe from 1933. And that's going to kick things off. And so that's what we're going to do next time around.
Yeah, looking forward to it. That's a part of my childhood, boy.
And we'll be getting into.
Here's one more thing before we go.
Sure.
I noticed this today. Just before we went on. That in the early years when they were first marketing Sonny and Cher, and she was wearing the bell bottoms and all the hippie stuff, and he would be wearing that animal fur vest thing that he would. I noticed something today that it's true.
What?
It's undeniably true. Sonny's haircut at that time, at the very beginning, was the same haircut that Peter Tork in the Monkees had.
Oh, wow, you're so right.
The exact same haircut.
Wow, the Monkees influenced Sonny and Cher. Wow.
So check that out.
I will.
It's undeniable. Once you look at it, you're going, oh my God, Gar's right.
Okay.
That is Peter Tork's haircut.
Wow, Gar, I think you're right. Wow. Gar Borras, another great episode. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.